If I could move to our next speaker, is very dear to members of the Chinmaya mission for his seminal work on the English biopic On a Quest, a special film commemorating the 100th birth centenary of Gurudev, Puja Gurudev Swami Chinmayananda. Thank you, Prasannaji, for a wonderful depiction. I urge members of the audience to definitely make time to see the movie. It is available on the Chinmaya YouTube channel. Please do make time, and it makes for wonderful viewing. Mr. R.S. Prasanna is a gold medal winning director from the L.V. Prasad Film Academy, Chennai. He is a unique voice who is not afraid to take up cutting-edge topics and place them in the mainstream Indian milieu as a writer, director, and producer. One of the examples is he debuted in the Hindi cinema with the blockbuster Subh Mangal Savdhan, starring Ayushmann Khurrana and Bhumi Pednekar in 2017. With its sensitive and hilarious handling of a taboo adult subject within the paradigm of mainstream Hindi cinema, it is a much-loved and awarded film. The original film in Tamil, Kalyana Samayal Sadham, pardon my pronunciation, 2013, which he also wrote and directed, was also a hit and an audience and critics' favorite. He is currently slated to direct a very mainstream Hindi film for the prestigious Amir Khan Productions, starring specially abled people at a scale never before seen in Indian cinema. We all look forward to viewing that soon. Thank you, Mr. Prasanna, for sharing your thoughts on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I invite Mr. Gopal Krishna Malia, Vice President, Chinmaya Mission, Mumbai, to welcome Prasannaji. I'd like to invite our third speaker for the afternoon, Mr. Prasanna, if you could address us.
Hari Om, thank you for this opportunity. It's very tough to compete with grumbling stomachs. So I feel already more nervous. So I'll just play a small little video. It's a very important, very serious video. So please pay attention. I'll be asking you questions. This is the first video of the African video. It's a very serious video.
What color is the sky? I'm amor, I'm amor. You tell me that it's red. I'm amor, I'm amor. Where should I put my shoes? I'm amor, I'm amor. You say put them on your head. I'm amor, I'm amor. You make me un poco loco, un poquitito loco. The way you keep me guessing, I'm nodding that I'm yesing. Now count it as a blessing that I'm only un poco loco.
Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. So I can just go sit down right now. I'm a Chinmaya baby. I did my schooling in Chennai and at the Chinmaya Vidyalaya. And I grew in a very protective environment. I was a school people leader, I was a school topper. My wife reminded me because my class had 23 students. Reality hit me after 10th when I went to a school called DAV. I had scored 92% in CBSE. And I realized I was ranked 35th in the class. All my pride vanished. And I remember that the only skill that I had was speaking. That was in the school of 24 kids. So I thought that is the only way I can get attention in this strange new school. But I was feeling terrible for 6 months. I was feeling very terrible. So I got a chance to speak. And the teacher asked me, can you prepare your speech and write your speech and we'll present it in front of me. And I did the biggest mistake of my life. I said, Winston Churchill said that to prepare a good extempore speech takes him about 3 weeks. And the mood in the room is just you and me. So I don't know if the feeling of speaking to one person will be equivalent of speaking to about 500 people are going to be there. She marched me to the principal's room. And she said, this arrogant guy from Chinmaya. I don't know what sort of school it is. So I realized that when you think Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, no, you start taking undue advantage of people thinking that they are also your family. Because this is the way I used to be. I was a ladla, I was the apple of the eye at home in Chinmaya. And my teachers always knew that this guy will come up with something and he'll speak. Now, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam can be very dangerous. Because I thought that new school was also my family, culturally very different. Eventually, the speech went off well. But I learned a very important lesson, that what applies in one place need not apply in the other. You know? So I was very scared to prepare. But so this time I prepared more or less some points to speak, so I don't start losing focus, and I don't offend anybody. Because speaking after two of the very important people who are right at the war zone of offense taking and call out culture. Navika and you, So I was feeling very underqualified until I realized that now filmmakers are also being attacked all the time. So I felt kind of qualified. See, cinema is a uniquely cinema is a very unique art form, a unique a platform for Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And the strange thing about cinema, as opposed to perhaps some of the other departments we heard today, the unique thing about cinema is you heard the song, right? Does anybody understand the meaning of the song? Does anybody understand? The fact is that you can get away with this in cinema. I can just play a song like this and all of your mood just gets elevated. You feel like dancing, I fell in love with these kids. I've been tripping on this song for the last 4-5 days. It's so beautiful. It's a cover of a song from a movie called Coco, which I think is Mexican or Spanish or I don't know. And yet, it doesn't matter to me. What I saw was just music and dance, and I could see myself in that, those Taklu kids, So that is a beautiful thing about cinema, that cinema is uniquely placed to engage with Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, because in cinema, the more local you go, the more global you can become. Right? So this is very similar to a little bit of spirituality, because forgive me, I'm a Chinmaya baby, so this is all in my blood. I've heard this all my life. So when Swamiji used to speak about, searching within yourself, the beautiful thing about cinema or any storytelling for that matter is, for you to reach out to the world, you have to reach within you. Right? So I was in Berlin when I was in my film school, and I was taken as a representative of young filmmakers emerging in India. Apologies for that. And I was, in Berlin, and I saw so many films, I got scared. Till the time, again, the same, I used to make short films at home. I used to make few films which some of my friends used to watch. And suddenly I landed in Berlin, I see 300 films. And I'm so scared, because suddenly a children's film I'm watching in Berlin, and there is absolute pin drop silence on screen, and absolute pin drop silence in the audience also. And none of them is clapping, none of them is laughing. But at the end of this really terribly boring movie, they all clapped 4 times and left. So I was wondering, oh my God, should I not make funny movies anymore? Should I make a movie like this? Until the next day I saw some Italian movie, then I was so confused for those 12 days that I realized, okay, whatever I know, let me do that, So cinema, the more local you go and the more you know your voice, there are chances that you will reach out to more and more people. Because when you're watching a movie, you're not watching an intellectual analysis of how the world is. You are readying yourself to hear a story. And that is a powerful superpower of filmmaking that all filmmakers have, So we live in exciting times remember Lagan, when it went to the Oscars? How many of you were watching that event? So I was, probably a little more than Amir and Ashutosh Govarikar. All us kids who were trying to make digital cinema that time, we were looking at it with bated breath. I remember there was some talk of, I think No Man's Land, a movie from Argentina, if I remember right, or Hungary. So that movie won. And there was a lot of talk about how Lagan was a lesser film because it had songs. And it had dance. And this form is so, it's such a problem that we song and dance. Maybe we should have cut those songs out of Lagan and made it more international, right? Cut to today, what happened with RRR? We have the Firangs dancing to our tunes. And it's not even the best song out of India. There are superb songs that Keeravani Garu has composed and Rahman has composed. And now we are living in a situation, oh, this is what you like, okay, good. You know, we have more. So we live in, from being apologetic about, you know, the song and dance, you know, my mommy, daddy used to do that, but I'm this cool guy who doesn't dance, you know. I make films which are very silent. Like I went to Berlin, you know. That kid is today empowered to say, this is us. This is who I am. And because I'm not apologetic about who I am as a storyteller, I'm not saying as a political or a social force, I'm saying as a storyteller, this is my story. Chances are that my story will reach out to a lot more people in the world, right? So this is a huge opportunity that we have as storytellers, and there is a science behind this. You know, there is actually a chemical that releases, there are a set of 3 chemicals that release every time you hear or watch a story. And if you know what those chemicals are, like right now it might be acidity and all the other things, and some digestive hormones. So I don't take responsibility for that, that's because of the timing. But any of you know? Sorry, dopamine, yes. Endorphin, perhaps. I mean, I'm sure a lot of chemicals have to be secreted, otherwise you won't be alive while watching a movie. But primarily, there is something. See, when you see a road accident on the way, you stop your car or vehicle and you turn around and cause more accident, right? Why does that happen? We all have this chemical called let me check because I just read it up. So there's something called cortisol. So what it does is whenever you see something in distress, your cortisol increases and your attention goes. That's what Navika was also saying. Which is why most of our TV today has to be distressing. It is because our brain is wired that way. If I give you a news channel 24/7 showing all the greatness and all beautiful visuals of India, nobody will watch it. Trust me. Our attention goes towards distress and conflict. That's because of the cortisol in our brains. And that cortisol is the same whether you're an African or an Indian or a European. So when you see a movie with an action sequence, you see a movie with a lot of drama, why is it that you respond? It's because of the same hormone that secretes within you there, secretes within me here. You know? Then there is another hormone that is called oxytocin. This is called the empathy hormone. You see someone in distress, you immediately care for them, right? And then you try to do something, you empathize, you relate. That's what cinema hopes to do every time. In the first 10-15 minutes of any movie that I make, I hope that you care for my lead characters. Otherwise, I don't have a chance. You'll just say, I don't care, what is this movie? And you'll not watch the movie. And finally comes dopamine. When you see that this journey from conflict to resolution, you get a high after. You all feel good after seeing a good movie, right? You might feel better after a bad movie finishes and you come out. But it is this brain, this storytelling brain is there, which has evolved over millennia, right? So this is the opportunity that we have. Today, we also have some dangers, right? Because of this kind of glocal storytelling, as I call it. Global plus local is a word we've heard in every sphere, and so too here. But there are also a lot of challenges. At a very personal level, I'll tell you what challenge I'm facing. My wife is a huge fan of K-drama. Any of you know of Korean drama? Korean drama? And Pakistani serials with Fawad Khan in it. How many ladies here watch those dangerous serials? Yeah. So basically what it's doing, Swamiji, you will probably understand at a different level, but it's making us husbands feel very insecure. So ये बहुत बड़ा problem है. Now how do I learn Korean? I can't, And my wife insists that I don't stand a chance, so forget about it. Let me just watch this Korean fantasy of mine, you be who you are. So husbands in India have to compete with Korean husbands now. So this is a huge problem that this global storytelling paradigm that you live in, Jokes apart, there is a serious thought behind this, that there is a context to, there is a certain availability of choice today for a viewer, right? When you log into Netflix or Amazon, you're not only limited to that Doordarshan one channel that you're given so many options. Now, being given so many options is not necessarily a good thing in and of itself. Sometimes it would also be a bad thing. Sometimes I wonder, maybe the advantage we had with Doordarshan was the fact that there was only Malgudi Days and Byomkesh Bakshi and those beautiful serials were available to us. And in Chennai, I used to watch Kai Alavu Manasu by K. Balachandar and amazing serials, right? So sometimes having too many options, I know a lot of friends who are going to OTT, spending 1 hour trying to search content and switching off and going to sleep. And what they are saying, you know, I wish somebody chose. But I said, but you want to go back to Doordarshan times? They're like, no, hame options hai. So this is a big problem that today you have a lot of options, right? And what happens is that because of this kind of options that we are having, we're also having a certain second guessing, right? There is an opportunity today that a movie I do can go global. So what happens is, there is a certain second guessing of my audiences. For example, if I have to make a movie traditionally, I used to think that, okay, I have to make a movie for Hindi or for Tamil, and that used to be my audience. Today, I don't know potentially what my audience is, right? And anybody sitting anywhere can take offense, right? So, and forget censorship by the government. What is happening is filmmakers have started self-censoring because something I say today, they'll call me a Sanghi, they'll call me right-wing. Then right-wing in America is different from right-wing in India. There it is left and slightly between right and left, you know. But here it is something. Here you're a conservative, there you're progressive. But here you're liberal. Arey, I'm just telling you a story, now you decide who I am, you know. So today if I were to say all of us, let's do a joint exercise. Let's make a perfectly inoffensive movie, right? Who shall I choose as my hero? Let's say we choose some character as my protagonist. Any options? Just say, choose any character as a hero. Na? Just give me options. We'll make a movie in 1 minute. Swat Mananji. हम biopic में नहीं जाएंगे. Just say a character. Character. Sorry? Charlie Brown. Akshay Kumar, that's an actor. Popeye. Let's say somebody in real life that you meet. Any examples of somebody you meet every day? Let's say you're a rickshaw driver. Let's say we take rickshaw driver. Because don't worry, I'm used to taking people beating me up for my movie, so I'll take the blame. Rickshaw driver ko aap hero banana hai abhi. Now who's the villain in that? Who can be the villain for a rickshaw driver? Policeman. I'm just saying we make, just for the sake of argument, we make a policeman as a villain. Now you tell me what are all the problems I'll face as a filmmaker today. First of all, the auto rickshaw union will come after me. Then the police people will not come after me, I'll have to go to them. Just imagine, you know. And anything that I say, first of all, then somebody will come and say, why is it a policeman? Why not a policewoman? Arey, yahan pe policeman, let him first scold me, then let's come to policewoman. Then they'll say, why auto rickshaw driver is, why are you showing that guy as a guy from UP? That shows you are politically motivated. Okay, let's make a movie where there are no characters. It's only silence. No characters. Because I'm scared now. Then somebody says, what about the people who cannot hear? Why are you assuming that it's only a visual? So what about my friend who is blind? See, he or she may not take offense. But the person who is speaking on his or her behalf takes offense. So then I decide, okay, let me not have visual also, let me not have audio also, let me not make a movie, let me go sleep at home. Now this is a dangerous trend that is starting. If you make an Avengers movie or a Marvel movie, have you seen that they have a separate cut for China? Now they'll come for India also. We are also becoming slightly powerful. So now they will also have one Indian cut, one Chinese cut. So it's becoming a very dangerous threat to the very notion of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which cinema used to pride itself on. You know, when you watch Life is Beautiful, have you seen Life is Beautiful? So even that filmmaker at that time felt a lot of criticism. He faced a lot of criticism, saying that how dare you make a funny movie about the Holocaust, yeah? But the power of his conviction, he went and made the movie, it won the Oscar, and it's a beautiful movie, right? But today, can I make a Life is Beautiful anymore? I don't know. I may still do it. But I may have to give up my life in this process of doing it, right? Because what is happening is this cortisol secretion in everybody's brain. Na? We got so used to this cortisol secretion, distress, attention, distress, attention. So most people today don't even watch movies. They just ban them on Twitter. I come to know which movie is releasing. You know how? I type boycott. And before the producer knows, I know which movie, acha, these are the 5 movies. Okay. I think, then, this is the movies we're releasing. It is all fun and games, and it is all open season as long as these are words, and these are all debates, and these are all discussions. Cinema has always been, you open up conversation starters. You know, there is a movie you screen, and then you have a discussion about the movie. Like you have a book club, you read a book, then you discuss about it. You want to boycott my movie, you want people to, I'm talking personally here. Please go ahead, it's your right if I have done, but that should not be the only voice that is out there, and that should not result in some sort of a political backlash for me, because cinema is all about conversation. So what Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam talking about the role of cinema has always been conversation starters. But today, that very conversation is being ended. Cinema has started becoming silent, right? A story is one person's perspective of that. You know, Gone with the Wind, this cancel culture is happening so much more in the West, not so much so in India. Gone with the Wind, I believe, is getting censored or something because it shows slavery, and it shows the whites against that. Slavery is being shown as being normalized. You know, so what is happening is, more and more if you start seeing movies out of context, anything and everything. For example, take Dangal. In Dangal movie also, if you say that there is a man who says, Choriyan chore se kam nahi, the girls are not lesser than the boys, I can sit with you for 3 hours and get 3,000 offensive statements out of this. First question, why should you think that, why are you comparing boys and girls? Then why are you beating up the girls? Why are you making the girls look like boys? It's a story, yeah. It's a story of one guy, right? So, cinema is to be seen as a conversation starter, right? Not as a conversation ender, right? So what we are facing today is cinema is a very powerful, magical tool for us all to come together. You know, I understand that in the medium of, let's say, the press and the news, that arguments and debates are going out of hand. But cinema, like a song and dance, is one of those last surviving art that people get into a theater or watch it at home and are happy to watch a film. They cry, they laugh. So I think we face a future where we need braver filmmakers than before to voice their opinion, to voice it without fear, and to voice it with so much of possible offense takers all around you. But it's not a bleak future because we are Indian, and I'm an Indian filmmaker, and I love happy endings. So we always like to believe in hope, right? So where is the hope? The hope is in India. I feel as Indians, we are uniquely qualified and uniquely placed to not just be part of the global filmmaking community, but to perhaps even lead it. You know why? Ask any global filmmaker to come into one of our homes in India. Everybody is fighting all the time. Everybody has an opinion, but we all love each other. And we all take people along. Everybody has a problem with everybody else, but shaadi aa jata hai. When the wedding happens, we all come together. When a death happens, we all come together. And it is in this India that I have a lot of hope. That as an Indian, I'm uniquely qualified, not because of my brains or because of anything, but because of my heart. So I'd like to conclude by saying that there are broadly four pillars on which cinema and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam can take a huge leap forward. And the 4 pillars are obviously the filmmaking industry, that's one pillar, the audience, the critics, and the government. So these 4 pillars have to come together as a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam and understand that without my audience, I am nobody. Without my government, I am nobody. Without my critics, I am nobody. And vice versa, right? So we should all get into a sense of understanding that cinema is a beautiful, beautiful medium for us all to debate, to engage with. So when you watch a film, if you get offended by it, fantastic. Write articles. Reach out to the filmmaker. Start a conversation. Don't try to end it. Thank you.
Yes, so we will now move on to the moderated question answer session. I've just been informed Navika ji had to excuse herself. She had an important story that seems to have come her way and that needed her attention, so she has excused herself. If I could invite both the panelists to join me on the dais while I introduce the moderator for this afternoon. The moderator for this afternoon is Mr. Vivek Krishnani, Vice President, Chinmaya Mission, Mumbai. Mr. Krishnani is also one of the youngest leaders in the film industry. He is presently the President and CEO of Films Business of IN10 Media Network, IN10, a company co-promoted by Mr. Anand Mahendra and Mr. Aditya Pitti. In his earlier avatars and senior positions, he has been associated with marquee film distribution companies like Sony Pictures and Fox Star Studios, marketing amazing content like Piku, Slumdog Millionaire, Life of Pi, and worked with the best of the best, Mr. Bachchan, and many modern-day luminaries. Talk about a jackpot. I'd do him injustice by not going on with his accomplishments, but in the greater interest of time, my Vivek tells me that I need to hand it over to you. So I invite Vivek to the dais, and I also invite Vineet Parekh, Secretary Chinmaya Mission, Chinmaya Yuva Kendra, Mumbai, to welcome him with a token. It's part of the protocol. Come. Over to you, gentlemen.
I know this is Hariom, everybody, and I know this is the worst time of the day when between the food for the tummy, we are now discussing food for thought, which is hopefully going to kind of keep us engaged for the next few minutes. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so without wasting any further time, unfortunately, Navika ji couldn't be here. So, first question, I think, Mr. Goenka, to you. Oh, you're on the mic. I think that's a question that everybody currently is dealing with, that how do you deal with this menace called fake news? In this era of unbridled news, how do you differentiate good versus fake, where fake news could also mean agenda-oriented or convenient misinterpretation of facts?
Look, it's a, I think fake news is, I mean, you use the word good also in that question, so I'm a little confused about how to answer it now. It's either fake or it's not fake, right? That's the first piece we should be very clear about. And a lot of fake news, I think, fake news doesn't really come from media. Fake news comes from government. Fake news comes from people in power, generally, right? So my editor always says this, the biggest, always the most, like the biggest fake news of this century was when Colin Powell stood up at the United Nations and said that they have discovered weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. That is fake news said by a leader of state. The stronger the government, the more there is need to control the narrative. And you're seeing this around the world. I mean, I don't know how many people have followed what's happened in Brazil with Bolsonaro at that time. It was extreme, it was just controlling content. You see, we have to be clear as audiences what is propaganda, what is something that you want to objectively learn and understand from. I'm a bit of a World War buff. I think a turning point for the Second World War, turning point was when the BBC began to broadcast in German language, right? You can call that propaganda. It's somebody's propaganda. So I think, so there's no real good answer, really. I think fake news is really up to us as audiences to ask the question. I think, after COVID, we fought the pandemic, we fought the infodemic. We fought the infodemic with people actually being very now, very curious as to who has said what. Earlier it was just like, ye kisi ne kaha hai. Something came on WhatsApp, you start forwarding around. People are now much more conscious who has sent it, which channel has said it, which newspaper has reported it, which reporter has reported it. So there is a certain evolution, which I think is the only way to really control fake news.
Thank you. Very, very apt expression of how to handle this fake news, and the onus lies on us largely as well. Question to you, Prasanna. Thanks. You spoke about cancel culture, and like you rightly said, globally this cancel culture is very, very prevalent, and now it's kind of moving towards India, where people are attacking celebrities for voicing their thoughts. So there's a question from Chaitanya here saying, in the world of cancel culture, where people want to shut other people down, how does one bring a forum for discussion? How do you handle this, and how does one bring the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam in it?
Beautiful. I love the question, and thanks for asking that, Chaitanya. I think the core of all this is, what happens when a certain problem doesn't get resolved in its origin, it will express itself in some other place, right? So what happens is, when a lot of the issues have to be dealt at a political, social, real, on-the-ground level, and that work is very difficult to draw people's attention to. Even if you're a good politician, today, if I were to resolve a certain problem at the ground level, it will take me maybe 10 years, 15 years. Whereas if I go ban a movie and give a speech about a movie, however irrelevant it is, I'll get attention. Because this whole system of getting, like you have TRPs, see, each industry has got its own, metrics, which we can use as excuse for going on in the way that we have always been going. I can quote the box office, you can quote the TRP. The politician can quote the 5-year system of getting votes. Everyone has got a reality of somewhere metrics, some business, right? So it's very easy for a politician today to actually, media, for celebrities to talk about movies or talk about, so then what you feel, like Obama rightfully pointed out about his own daughter, that previously protest meant at least you went out and did something. Today all you have to do is sit at your home and put one tweet. For example, even if I'm talking about trans rights, you see today the debate there is no debate in America, right? It's scary. Take J.K. Rowling, for example. For God's sake, the creator of Harry Potter, people are calling that she should not be credited for the HBO series, which she has created. And for what? She is telling that in her point of view, I am a woman, and let me have a word to say about this too. She is labeled a transphobe, she is cancelled. It's very dangerous. I might be cancelled for saying this. Luckily, I'm not as big as J.K. Rowling. But this is a reality. So what happens is, the core issue will never get resolved. What are we talking about? People who are trans must be given the same rights as people who are not trans, or whatever you call them. Like, we're all human beings. Again, it's a Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, but that issue is forgotten. Now it becomes about J.K. Rowling getting cancelled or not. So that's more interesting. It's very interesting for me to throw stones, beat up people, than to actually sitting and solving problems. Very boring. Yeah. So that's why that same thing, becomes like a cancel culture. Now it has got into some other stage. It's got cancer. But people's careers are getting destroyed by some arbit. And it is very fascinating that most of this is done by the woke people who are calling themselves liberal, but they're actually mirroring the so-called right-wing dictators that they're actually behaving like those guys who are dictators. They're dictating who should be cancelled and who should not be. So I would say that as a filmmaker, does this worry me? Yes. But where I get worried, there also I will get a story from it. So I'm very happy that as a filmmaker, I'll probably make a movie out of this. And there'll be enough people to support me on this. So that's one way of looking at it.
And they'll come and cancel you afterwards.
Let them cancel me afterwards, yeah.
Thanks, Prasanna. Yeah, absolutely. The cancel culture is like cancer culture. It's kind of getting worse and worse. Question to you, Mr. Goenka. I'm sure you have your own views, as we've seen, and your own leanings on issues which impact India. As the owner, how does one ensure that your personal views do not come in the way of a free-flowing democratic newsroom?
That's a great question, and I can't. If you know me, people who know me are shocked as to how many times the paper has taken editorial positions which strongly disagree with what I personally believe. We've been raised. I have been raised to think of our purpose as very simple, really. Our purpose is to give the journalists the freedom to express their passions. And that means very often disagreeing with the editor, but the editor is the editor and I'm not. And that's, I think, the best way for an independent news organization to function is when there is a very clear distance between owner and editor. And I think we've been doing it. I can't say I don't think we're the norm. I certainly think that there are lots of owners who are either dictating editorial policy or they're not at all involved in editorial. So they're so uninvolved that the editor is not challenged and the editor is also kind of, running his own agenda, which eventually becomes a very commercially, questionable way of operating. So I can't answer that except to say that, the paper has taken positions which disagree with me personally, disagree with Dad, But more importantly, I have to, as a reader, feel that the paper has given my position a voice. It's taken a position which is disagreeing with it, but at least my position, which is the opposite position of the papers, at least there is enough space for it. And that's really where I think that there's a distinction between what we are doing and what I think most media is doing. It's very simple to just pick a side and keep hammering at it. It's commercially much easier, and it's just an easier thing to do. But what's much tougher is to have the same empathy for both sides and for all sides, and that's, I think, what the tough task is. I'll give you a small example. We had an express adda with the UP CM, Yogi Adityanath, a couple of years ago. I do some of the addas interviews. I enjoy doing them. I'm not Navika Kumar. I'm not on TV on primetime every day, and thank God I'm not. But I have never been trolled so much in a long time, right? I was like, how can you? And, from some of our real loyal readers, who I was surprised got SMSs, how can you do this? And I said, listen, you've got to figure out why you don't want to hear from possibly the most powerful chief minister India has seen in many, many years. He is Merkel, Johnson, and he's Boris Johnson, Angela Merkel, and who was the French guy back then? Macron. He has more votes than 3 state leaders combined. It is the largest state in the world, Uttar Pradesh, and he has won it. You have to be able to hear from him. I mean, you can troll me and ask him tough questions later, but to say that we should just not have him in the paper is a problem. So I think,
Thank you. Very refreshing to hear that. And a quick anecdote. I was talking to a common friend, Neeraj Ambani, and he was telling me that he was once in Arthur Road jail, where he was. Don't ask me why. I don't know, but he was there, and one of the jailers basically said that there was a story going on, and they said that I'm glad that Indian Express is here. At least 2 things will happen, because if it's the fact, they'll print it. If it's not, they won't. So I think that's great amounts, and kudos to all the credibility to Indian Express.
I hope everybody who's clapping is a subscriber, and if you aren't, become one now.
I think everybody's plugging their things here. So Danshu did. Anyway, great. Question to you, Prasanna. And this is related to another question that somebody's asked about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. In today's era, where countries like Japan, Korea, US are exporting their pop culture through anime, martial arts, pop songs, music, India, with its rich culture, history, and diverse population, has a vast pool of creative talent and produces a vast range of content. Now, despite its popularity, Indian content often struggles to gain significant global recognition and reach. How can we use the principles of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam to correct this?
Again, wonderful, beautiful questions. I think it's a lucky day for me. I'm getting all these lovely full tosses to. So this is again something that even Vivek, he's a studio head and I'm a filmmaker. So this is a conversation we also keep having. So I feel that, for example, Kantara, right? This movie Kantara, how many of you saw it? Yeah, right? So RRR. So we have enough number of filmmakers, we have enough talents. I think what we have to possibly do is that in terms of, we are making a shift from the traditional system of making movies, our studio way of making, the corporate studio method of making movies. No? What's happening? I see a very interesting trend. Like when I work in Chennai, when I work here in Mumbai, so a lot of the corporate studios na mein na Hindi nobody speaks. So you'll find a lot of the people who are in the creative teams and all, they don't speak Hindi. So, like for example, in his journey or any of the people who are veterans, right, they would have gone through theaters, they would have gone through on the ground, right, and then come up. So, a lot of the younger people who are in, wanting to get into films, right, are actually not in the big cities. All the great filmmakers are actually possibly not only in Mumbai or only there because they can't survive. I used to say Chennai is a beautiful city to be a struggling filmmaker in. It's a beautiful city to struggle because for 5,000 rupees I can find a house, I can live a life. Here in Mumbai, you cannot have those 5 years of incubation as a filmmaker to write your script, to assist somebody. You know what I mean? So I think this is where, to answer this question, this is where the industry, the government, has to come forward. Today we have a small happy thing that's happening. You see even in Hindi movies, right? You see more desi, authentic stories slowly being told in Hindi cinema, right? Because we also have casting groups that go out to Delhi and all other places like, But we don't have studios reaching out to writers in small towns, to directors in small towns. We should reach out. An open door policy does not mean, and this is Ed Catmull who says in Creativity in the Pixar book, that an open door policy doesn't mean my door is open and I'm sitting inside there. As a leader, you have to go open doors of your subordinates, you open them every day and every day ask them, do you have a problem? That's your job. That's why you're getting those millions of dollars here. So we should go out to these cities and this is where the culture is, this is where the passion is, and empower those guys. You know what I mean? Instead of saying that I'm in Bombay, you come and meet me. I can't even afford your flight ticket, I'm sorry. I can't come to Bombay. Like when Netflix or Amazon starts their offices, they started in BKC. Why? As a filmmaker, I'm allowed to ask such stupid questions. I'm sure Vivek will have very good reasons why, but as a director, I'm allowed to ask certain controversial questions like this, so I'm taking the liberty with you. But I feel that if you understand the spirit of what I'm trying to say, that the studios, the monies basically, right, should be spread out. We should reach out to every B town, every small town, have a small little place there to have writers' rooms and incubate. And let them write in their regional languages. They should not, why are you asking for a submission in English? A humor show which was presented to me, supposedly as a director, I'm reading a script, that show, that script is written in English. It is for a Hindi show or a Tamil show. Why? Because the guys in Bombay, they have to read. So what this does is, you are trying to, kind of restrict the movie making to a small percentage who knows English, who can afford to live in Bombay, and who are close to you, and they can come. I think this is the problem why we are not empowering. We will have 10 more Rajamoulis, we will have 20 more Kantaras. There'll be so many more people coming out, and it'll be a great business too. It will be a great business. So I think that kind of thought process in the money side of things also, that Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, I need to reach out to my family of filmmakers in India, because that's what the West, so Korea does that beautifully, Japan does that beautifully. So I think we are still in that colonial mindset that if a guy doesn't speak English, he doesn't know his job. So that has to go from our DNA. It'll take time, but it's high time we do that.
बहुत सही बोले आपने, एकदम perfect. बहुत सही बोला. Moving away from English slightly.
Can I just add one thing
Sure,
to what he said? I think that's a fantastic answer, and I completely agree. But just one thing I think also the West, because it's such a big market, so we keep saying, when will the West accept? Why do we want them to accept? We have to think about that. But the answer is, from pure commercial perspective, you want to get a larger audience. So let's understand that's why we want it in the first place, not for any other reason. But also, I find that there is a sort of binary mindset that after living in America for 6 years, I can tell you, the things don't translate. I was talking to a friend of mine. He's one of the business reporters covering India for I won't say which organization, and we're talking about one of the Hinduja family talk that's happening. It's in the news, I can say. And he says, "Boss, what is this philosophy? It says all the wealth is owned by everyone and no one." Now, as an Indian, it makes complete sense to me about what they're trying to say and achieve with that one sentence. I don't know if you're familiar with this. Hinduja families openly, they very often say this, that all the assets and the shareholding, the wealth of the Hinduja group will be owned by everyone and no one. That's something, I'm just saying it, phrasing it wrong. But I'm sure Swamiji knows completely what they're trying to achieve by saying that. And it's a very profound thing. But you know, we are, I mean, in that news organization, we're laughing stock when they read that sentence out loud. Because they haven't made the effort of coming to, I mean, how will they? I mean, you know, it's a beat for 2 years. But you know, this takes if you grow up in this culture, you understand what that kind of, what that means. You know, and I'm saying one thing, you know, passing, but it comes in very many ways. I had an opportunity of interviewing Bill Gates in his last visit here. He was delivering Ramnath Goenka lecture. I had a lovely conversation with him, and you know, it was great fun. But I asked him, I said, look, you know, the way the West has lived, you know, how does the West come and teach us about being environmentally conscious and, you know, and fighting climate change, right? How, you know, what makes you think that, I mean, how much have you thought about learning from how India lives? And the answer I got, and I didn't push him there at the time, but the answer I got was, you know, the answer to solving global climate change isn't to live in poverty. You know, that's the answer I got. I didn't want to push him at that point. I couldn't actually, I would have liked to. But the question I wanted to say was, why, tell me any Hollywood superstar the size of Salman Khan who lives in the same flat with his family, what is Salman Khan's carbon footprint compared to John Travolta, Tom Cruise, anybody of a similar size? So I'm saying it's not poverty, it's not a binary. But what translation nahi ho raha hai? They're not able to quite, you know, grasp India or try to understand how we're different. That's also at the,
for us.
Yeah.
Just to, sorry, because one thought which you said, see, it's very interesting, Anand, that when a Berlinale or a Busan Film Festival, when they invite filmmakers from India, right, they choose very local films. And they honor you, yeah. I saw a Marathi filmmaker, so the so-called Firangs that we talk about, they want localized flavor to play in their film festival, because only then it's exotic for them, it's new, right? They want world building. But what happens when we are just new to it, maybe 10 years is when the corporate studios ecosystem has evolved and it's still evolving. What happens is when I am having to work second guessing what, I'm a Desi and I'm second guessing what my Firang boss will want to see, I think that is a problem. It is not a personal, it is a mindset, right? But when the Firang or whatever, when he or she takes over, they are able to cut through it because they're not second guessing, they just go make what they like, right? So I think this is a great opportunity for us to kind of create our own studio systems, our own studio models, right? Because what was happening in the past was working beautifully for India. Like independent producers, they take the money and they put it, right? But now, the greatness about corporates is that we can expand it at some other level. So I look forward to the corporates to supercharge this process, but to make a certain desi, like you added paneer to pizza to sell it here. That's what we need to do, you know?
Absolutely. Do we have time for one last question? Okay. It's an interesting question about social media, since you oversee new media as well. One of the key things that we've seen now is that obviously digital and social media is very, very useful, extremely makes us a smarter society, but at the same time it's used to spread misinformation and fear and create divisiveness globally. How can media platforms leverage, their technologies to promote positive interactions and dialogues amongst individuals from diverse backgrounds to basically foster mutual understanding and counter this misinformation and divisive narrative?
I think the fact is that today we're all a victim of the algorithm. We don't really know why we're consuming what we consume on our phones. You open up Instagram, which is, I think, considered the best algorithm in the world, even better than TikTok. Instagram is considered the best. When you say best, meaning it is instinctively the most sticky algorithm. So when you open up Instagram, you struggle to stop. If you study that, if you study the user behavior on Instagram, you have no idea why you're saying yes or no, or why you're scrolling up, or why you're continuing to watch a particular reel or a particular post. You have no clue about why that is. So, when you said social media makes us smarter, also, I wasn't sure that the jury's out on that. I think, we are all becoming very aware that when I'm having a conversation with you right now about, Berlin Film Festival, if I say it 10 times, when I open on Instagram now on my phone, I'm going to get posts about Berlin Film Festival. I think this is becoming something where audiences are getting very aware. I think in India we have a long way to go because it's still a very new medium. And it's not second nature to us to be consuming social media as much as it is in the West. But I think, this has to come from the audiences. They have to understand that they don't want to be the monkey that the algorithm is controlling, but they want to make proactive choices about what content they want to consume. It's a journey. I don't think we're there. I think there's a lot of media education. There's a lot of just awareness that I think that is. I think we're all investing time and effort in it, but I think it's a journey. And the short answer is, everybody, please just follow Indian Express on your social media.
Just a corollary to that, there's a question which I'd like to just take as the last question from Vidhu, who's in the audience. He's saying in Singapore, Straits Times never runs a negative news on first few pages of newspaper. But in India, the first few pages always have negative news, which is highlighted in print media. What can media do to give more positive and value-based news in the first few pages of the print and newspaper?
Yeah, I think this is a complaint I get very often, but I will fall on my on Prasanna's guidance when he said that if Navika Kumar was just putting nice images of India and chirpy stuff, nobody would be watching. I think it's true. We don't like it, but the truth is, and it's an old thing. Fear sells. And I'm not saying that we have to therefore buy into or give into the fear. But I think that, what we do in a newspaper, I think we won't be doing our job if we are not calling out injustices, if we are not calling out where something, I think, needs to be called out. There was an attack on an army convoy 3 days ago. It was the front page news. It was not a pleasant sight to wake up to. It certainly wasn't. And maybe it isn't a good business to put that on the front page. Maybe a better business to put on the front page would be to put the African kid playing the guitar. Maybe, maybe I would have had more engagement on the newspaper if that was the front page. But we're failing in our job if we don't do that. The reason newspapers, newspapers versus the Indian Express news brand on social media, the Indian Express newspaper, the reason people read it today is because there's somebody telling you what you should be reading. And the editor is telling you, you should know that so many army Jawans died in a terrorist attack 3 days ago. And that is the biggest news of the day, because we have lost people who are fighting for our country. So that, that curation is something that we do for you. And, it's one of the reasons that I think Express doesn't sell as much as Times, because Times doesn't, Times is a much more easy read, and I respect them for understanding that is what audiences want. But I think that's what we are. We are a hard-hitting newspaper. We make you, we force you to pay attention to things that are uncomfortable.
Thank you. With that, we come to the end of this discussion. I know there are lots of questions out there, but we probably don't have the time, some other time. So, just want to say that, media and entertainment does have the power to influence. And with that power, hopefully we can kind of fulfill the vision of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Thank you very much.